This is not a drill. Breaking tonight, Britain just got kicked out of Israel. Not tourists, not citizens. The entire British government. Benjamin Netanyahu didn't just close the door, he welded it shut. And his message to London was ice cold. Britain has betrayed its allies and handed victory to terrorists. This is not diplomacy. This is rupture, the kind that leaves scars for decades. If you thought the UK still held global influence, what's happening right now will change your mind forever. It all began 4 days ago, when Prime Minister Keir Starmer made 2 decisions that detonated like political bombs. First, he backed international arrest warrants against Israeli leaders. Then, he announced a total arms embargo on Israel. Not just offensive weapons, everything, even the defensive systems that save Israeli civilians from rockets. In Jerusalem, outrage erupted instantly. In London, chaos followed. Britain called it moral leadership. Israel called it betrayal. And the fallout was immediate. Britain's ambassador to the UN, Dame Barbara Woodward, didn't even hear it from her own government. She learned it through Israel's diplomatic protest. That night, she resigned, quietly but symbolically. Even Foreign Secretary David Lammy was blindsided. He boarded a flight to Tel Aviv to ease tensions. But mid-air, everything changed. Israeli authorities revoked his landing clearance. The plane turned around, over the Mediterranean. A foreign secretary of a G7 nation denied entry live on radar. Diplomatic humiliation captured by the entire world. Hours later, Netanyahu appeared on television, flanked by his security cabinet. His tone, calm. His words, surgical. A nation that abandons its allies in their hour of need, he said, should not expect friendship in return. Within hours, Israel suspended all intelligence sharing with Britain, programs worth billions. Mossad reclassified British officials as security risks. Every counterterrorism link severed. Every cyber defense partnership frozen. And here's what makes it terrifying. Those intelligence channels have stopped 17 planned terror attacks on British soil in the past decade. That pipeline just went dark. Israeli firms that shielded Britain's energy grids, banking systems, and military communications are now pulling out. Defense contracts worth £12 billion are collapsing in real time. And families who once felt safe because of that partnership are realizing how exposed they truly are. Michael Green remembers it too well. 3 years ago, Israeli intelligence stopped the kidnapping of his daughter. He says they saved her life. But now, that lifeline is gone. Inside Downing Street, panic is replacing policy. Defense Secretary John Healey called the decision strategically suicidal. Home Secretary Yvette Cooper reportedly warned, "We've made Britain a target without protection." And she's not wrong. Leaked MI5 briefings now confirm that Iranian proxies are probing British systems, testing for new blind spots created by this fallout. In simple terms, Britain has just made itself vulnerable to enemies who never sleep. Rishi Sunak sees his moment. He's presenting himself as the man to restore order. And the polls, they're shifting fast. Conservatives surging into the 50s. Labor collapsing into the teens. National security bleeding like an open wound. But it's not just politics. Across the Middle East, the tremors are spreading. Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Bahrain, partners in the Abraham Accords, are quietly siding with Israel. In a closed Gulf session, one minister asked, "If Britain can abandon Israel this easily, what guarantee do we have they won't abandon us?" And in Washington, the whispers are turning into warnings. The CIA, the Pentagon, all reassessing Britain's role inside the Five Eyes alliance, because that triangle of intelligence between the US, the UK, and Israel has just cracked. A senior American official said it plainly. If forced to choose between London and Jerusalem, we already have. Even former CIA Director Mike Pompeo joined the chorus. Britain is choosing irrelevance over influence, he said, and those words cut deep. Meanwhile, France and Poland, both NATO allies, are questioning Britain's reliability. Polish diplomats are asking privately, if they can betray Israel, would they betray us next? The shockwaves reach every sector. Israeli venture capital freezes £4 billion in UK investments overnight. Tech collaborations vanish. Cybersecurity contracts vanish. Cancer research partnerships gone. Economists warn the losses could exceed £100 billion. And for British Jews, the fear is personal. Synagogues that once relied on Israeli security training now stand alone. Community schools are reviewing every safety measure. The chief rabbi has called an emergency meeting. One phrase echoes across Jewish communities tonight: the government has abandoned us. In Tel Aviv, British journalists are being turned away from press events. Universities have expelled British students from exchange programs. And the once bustling British embassy, now a ghost building. A senior Israeli diplomat summed it up in one chilling line: "This isn't retaliation, it's demonstration. We're showing the world what happens when trust breaks." And here's the truth London won't admit. Britain's global standing, its intelligence credibility, its alliances, are collapsing faster than anyone predicted. Without Israeli intelligence, Britain can no longer see Iran's nuclear activity. Hezbollah's movements vanish from radar. Hamas financing through Europe goes dark. Even ISIS remnants in Syria and Libya slip back into the shadows. The UK has blinded itself, voluntarily. And as silence replaces strategy, the clock is ticking. Tomorrow's emergency intelligence briefing will expose what Britain can no longer see: the threats now invisible because of one man's political gamble. In this new world, ignorance isn't just dangerous, it's fatal. Stay tuned, because this story is just beginning. Last night, Britain slept blind, and this morning it woke up in the dark. Because when Israel severed its intelligence ties, the United Kingdom didn't just lose an ally, it lost its eyes and ears across half the world. From Tehran to Damascus, from Tripoli to Beirut, British surveillance grids have gone silent. MI6 operatives are stranded in regions once covered by Israeli data streams, and the consequences are now hitting home. Within 24 hours of the fallout, Iran's Revolutionary Guard launched cyber probes into the UK's power grid. At least 4 were successful, one even reached the National Energy Data Core. And for 10 full minutes, the lights in northern London flickered. The government called it a technical fault, but insiders know it was a message, a silent digital declaration. We see you, but you can't see us. Meanwhile, in Washington, unease is turning into distance. For 70 years, the Five Eyes Alliance, America, Britain, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand, stood as the Western world's shield of intelligence unity. Now, that shield is fractured. The CIA has already rerouted 2 of its data streams that once passed through GCHQ in Cheltenham. Australia is reviewing its own data protocols, and Canada is quietly lobbying the US to become the new bridge between Israel and the West. Britain, once the heartbeat of Western intelligence, is now the weak link. Inside the Pentagon, analysts are calling it the blackout effect. Without Israeli surveillance input, Britain has lost 63% of its eyes in the Middle East and Eastern Europe. That means less visibility on terrorist financing, less clarity on nuclear development, and almost no access to the covert movements of Russian or Iranian-backed militias. And here's the part the public doesn't know. Britain's cyber firewall was itself built on Israeli technology. Now, all updates have stopped. The system can't even patch itself. Every passing hour makes the UK more exposed. Inside Downing Street, panic meetings stretch past midnight. Starmer's aides are begging for a diplomatic reset, but Netanyahu isn't answering calls. Israel's foreign ministry has formally declared the UK a limited trust partner. Translation: no intelligence, no cooperation, no rescue. Even British defense contractors are admitting it. The nation's cyber shield is already degrading. Every second the code sits idle, another vulnerability grows. Meanwhile, global markets are responding. The pound has hit its lowest level since 2020. Investors are pulling out of defense, tech, and aerospace. And the word unreliable is being whispered in every financial corridor from Zurich to Dubai. In the middle of all this, China and Russia are moving fast. Moscow has already proposed a security exchange with Tehran, offering shared satellite intelligence, the kind once filtered through London. And Beijing is expanding its influence in Africa and the Gulf. 3 weeks since the rupture, Britain now stands alone. No allies, no intelligence feed, only echoes of what used to be power. Inside London's crisis room, the monitors are still on, but they display nothing except one frozen line: connection lost. The Prime Minister's advisors sit in silence, watching a nation once called great disappear from the global stage. In Washington, the new alignment has hardened. The US-Israel-Poland intelligence bridge is operational. Britain has been officially categorized as a secondary partner. That phrase, in diplomatic language, means irrelevant. Across Europe, the ripple is visible. Paris, Berlin, Warsaw, all adjusting without London. NATO's most trusted intelligence chain now excludes the UK entirely. For the first time in 75 years, British analysts receive their security updates from public news feeds. The humiliation is beyond precedent, and yet the government still calls it a strategic realignment. But inside the MI6 archives, a final report, now declassified, tells another story, codename Blackout Protocol. It warns that without Israeli and American data streams, Britain will lose real-time awareness of 62% of global threat zones. That means terror plots, cyber attacks, nuclear smuggling, all unseen, untracked, unknown. The report ends with a single line. Britain's greatest danger is not its enemies, it's blindness. And blindness is exactly what follows. Tonight, British naval units in the Mediterranean report radar gaps, invisible drones crossing restricted airspace. The defense grid scrambles. No one knows who they belong to. No data, no identification. The silence is lethal. Within hours, Downing Street holds emergency consultations, but it's too late. Israel's new defense network has rerouted, and Britain is no longer on the list. Former CIA Director Mike Pompeo's words echo again. A nation that abandons its allies soon finds itself abandoned by history. Inside the Jewish community in London, synagogues hold prayer vigils for safety, not against terrorism, but against uncertainty. In Westminster, whispers grow louder. Could this be the end of Britain's leadership role in the West? Some still believe Starmer can fix it, that one phone call could reverse the damage. But the reality is colder. The alliances have moved on. New trust has been built, and Britain isn't part of it. Even inside Buckingham Palace, the mood is said to be somber, not political, but historical, because the crown has seen empires rise and fall, and it recognizes the signs of decline. But amid all this darkness, a single voice cuts through the noise, a former intelligence officer recording a farewell message before retirement. Her words now circulate quietly across encrypted channels. Quote, "We were once the eyes of the world. Now we can barely see ourselves. Empires don't collapse with explosions. They fade into silence, and the silence has begun." Britain's global identity, power, stability, trust has fractured beyond repair. And as night falls over London, the last data line between the UK and Jerusalem finally goes dark. No signal, no response, just the quiet hum of a nation left behind. History will remember this moment, not as a defeat on the battlefield, but as a self-inflicted exile. A superpower that silenced itself. This is UK Core News, bringing you the truth behind the headlines, the stories others won't dare to tell. Stay alert, stay aware, because what comes next will decide whether Britain wakes up or disappears completely. Disclaimer: this video is a dramatized news analysis created for storytelling purposes.